Welcome to episode 19 of Riff and Chips. I'm your host, Phil Vernon, and today's guest is Andy Gilmour, bassist for 100 Reasons and Raging Speedhorn. Andy and 100 Reasons burst onto the scene with 3 superb quickfire EPs in the early 2000s, before releasing the phenomenally successful debut album, Ideas Above Our Station, in 2002. They followed that up with 3 further albums before taking a break, but last year they returned to our turntables with Glorious Sunset, their first new music in 15 years. A few years ago, Andy also took on bass duties for another legendary UK band, Raging Speedhorn. Join us as we discuss 100 Reasons chart success, what it's like being on top of the pops, and the beauty of a Scottish morning roll with lorne sausage. Andy, welcome to Riff and Chips.
Hello.
As usual, we always start by asking how you initially got into kind of like heavier music, whether it be rock or metal. So how did you initially kind of get into kind of the heavier side of music?
I kind of grew up to about the age of 8 or 10 or something like that. And I just listened to wherever it was on the radio, you don't even think about it, like.
Yeah, of course.
Michael Jackson's on the telly, basically. Yeah, you watch Michael Jackson. Obviously still love a bit of Michael now, but, you won't even think that wasn't even a world I was even thinking of, like anything heavier than that. And then I remember one day I was just watching the telly, and then this advert came on, and it was a Lucozade advert with Daley Thompson on it.
Oh, right, okay.
And it was the opening riff to Phantom of the Opera by Iron Maiden.
Oh, right, okay, cool.
It came on, and then as soon as it kicked in and he started running up the field sort of thing, I was like to my brother, I was like, what is that? Like, it's like my tiny mind had been like blown out the back of my head.
Yeah, for sure.
Sort of thing. Absolutely blown away. And then for a little while, I was like, oh, this is great. You see it every now and again. I always wondered what it was, because it's not like now where you can just go on the internet and find out in 5 seconds.
Yeah.
I think it was about 6 months later, we bought my brother for his birthday, my oldest brother for his birthday, we bought him the Live After Death.
Oh,
vinyl,
nice, yeah.
The double gatefold, the nice sort of thing.
Yeah, for sure.
He was listening to it upstairs, and then obviously that has Phantom of the Opera, and obviously it started playing. And literally, I don't think I've ever run up a set of stairs quicker than I did.
Finally found what it was, yeah.
I ran into his room and was like, "What is that? That's the song. That's the song." And he was just like that. And from then on, it was literally like. That was my life was changed forever.
Yeah.
I do take great pride in the fact that one year at the Crime Awards, I actually told Bruce Dickinson that, and he was quite chuffed about that. So,
that's good. It just shows no matter how big you are, someone telling you they like your band, it's still a big thing for anybody.
Yeah, well, we never know. If I hadn't heard that song, my life could have gone a completely different direction. So.
Yeah, for sure, yeah. What sort of age did you start maybe getting to shows and stuff, and who were the kind of first bands that you maybe saw live?
Obviously, my first proper shows I started going to were more local shows.
Yeah.
It's not like there was a proper big scene or anything at the time when I first started going, but, there was gigs happening in pubs and stuff like that. But, I remember going by myself to go to see Slayer at Brixton Academy.
Nice.
I think that might be the first time I went into a big gig.
Yeah.
And that was still, to me, the loudest gig I've ever been to, ever. I couldn't hear properly for about 3 days afterwards. It's like, very much it. Don't forget to wear your earplugs, folks.
Yeah. What sort of time would that have been around? Like, what they were kind of touring with? 96, okay.
It was, they'd done that punk covers album sort of thing.
Yeah.
It was funny because, I remember everyone was, super psyched for them to come on. And they came on. Got about 3/4 of the way through the first song, everyone's going great, and then the drummer had accidentally put his kick drum pedal through one of his kick drum skins.
Oh, right, okay.
So they had to sit there, and the drum tech had to change the kick skin before they could play any other songs.
Can happen to anybody.
Poor Tom Araya standing up on stage, and he looked so awkward, because that's the thing, I've had it in the past, you get on stage and you want to be focused in that mentality. I'm there to entertain. I want to play good. When stuff happens, and unfortunately stuff does happen like that sort of derails you slightly, it does kind of knock you for 6.
Yeah, for sure.
It was a great lineup as well. It was like Fear Factory were the main support, and it was a band. Do you ever remember a band called Misery Loves Company?
Yes, yeah. I remember seeing the name, yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
great
Swedish
on posters
band.
For shows like that around the day, yeah.
Yeah, great Swedish band around that sort. I can't remember if that was like 95 or 96 or something around those lines.
Yeah. So proper like demanufacture, obsolete era Fear Factory as well.
I think it was a demanufacture era.
That probably is, isn't it? 'Cause I think obsolete was more late 90s, wasn't it? Like 98 or something.
Yeah, I think it was 95-ish or something like that. Something around that sort of time.
So a few years after that then, so if that was 95, 96, 100 Reasons were formed around 99, is that right?
Yeah, kind of. So end of 96, 97, I first met up with Colin.
Yeah.
He was in a band called Cuff with another guy called Colin. And they were looking for a guitar player because their guitar player and drummer had just quit. I knew them through various friend circles, so we went and jammed and stuff like that. And it was kind of cool. I remember once we got in a rehearsal room, we didn't have a drummer either. And it was just me, Colin, and the other Colin, basically. And we were just like playing Deftones covers and jumping around the place and just jamming, basically.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was great because I'd done a couple of things beforehand and it's like, didn't really have the skill set to sort of keep up with me in a way. Do you know what I mean? Like, because I did the old classic sort of sit in a room and just play guitar constantly. These days, it looks like it's a lot easier to find a drummer. Back in my day, like when I first started out, it was like the drummers were like actual gold dust, and they were all in about 5 or 6 bands.
Yeah,
whether they wanted to be or not. It was into like
drummers are still very much a premium, I think, and like you say, the good ones are always in multiple bands. Like it's you only have to look at people like even like big famous like good drummers like Ben Collar from Converge. He's in Converge, All Pigs Must Die, Killer Be Killed now. He's in
he's in Mutoid Man.
Yeah. So like, as soon as you're a good drummer, no matter what level you're at, you're just super in demand. It's I don't think it'll ever change.
Oh no. At the time it just seemed harder. It just seemed a bit thin on the ground.
Yeah.
That's kind of how that started. And then we managed to get stuff rolling. I was still on guitar at the time, and then Larry was doing his band Jetpack for a bit, and they kind of split up, and it was kind of like, let's mold it together. And other Colin had disappeared by this point. At the time, I kind of just did it because I wanted to keep the band rolling. I was like, I moved over to bass because obviously Larry was doing that, and Larry was going to take over the guitar, and I don't know, Paul was doing a lot of BVs and stuff like that. It just made more sense for him to do it. And I had also done sort of some bass core stuff. So I guess I was just kind of, at the time, the most qualified.
Yeah.
As I've always now done, is just kind of threw myself into it properly to sort of not just be a guy playing guitar, a guy who can play guitar, just picking up a bass and just playing it like a guitar.
Yeah.
I always wanted to actually play it like a bass. You know what I mean? So first time I ever picked up a bass, I was at school, and they're like, all the schools always got those. Well, they used to anyway. They always got like these crappy piece of crap sort of instruments. This like school-owned instruments.
Yeah, that's been there for years and years. Yeah.
And the first time I ever picked up a bass, they had this bass. I think it was like a Marlin or something like that. It was awful, but bright red, like Ferrari red. And the first thing I did was to say, because I was like, always saw bass players like as bass players. The first thing I did was try to play finger playing, like finger style sort of thing. So I've always tried to sort of act as if I'm doing bass, I'm a bass player. You play as a bass, like how it's supposed to play. Even now when I play stuff with a pick, I don't play it like a strumming guitar sort of thing. It's just, as far as I'm concerned, it's like it is two completely separate instruments.
You bought the first record, which was obviously EP1 in 2000.
Mm-hmm.
And then not long after that, the big boys in Columbia came calling. So how did that come about?
Like many a band, we just slogged around doing the best we could.
Yep.
I think the first tour we properly did was supporting a band called the Crockets.
Okay.
Do you remember those? Really good bunch of lads, really great live band. So we were playing with them, and I just remember we were like, I can't remember the name of the guy, but we had some guy driving us around in this van, and it was like an ex sort of council van.
Oh, okay.
When like someone takes an old van that's got like that had the lettering down the sides, and they've just peeled the letter. You can still clearly see what it says on the side of it. So we just chucked stuff in the back of that. As soon as we finished work for the day, we got in the van, drove wherever we were going. The amount of times that we were playing a gig where we literally got to the gig, ran onto stage, played the gig, got back in the van, went home again, worked the next day, got back
Yeah.
in the van. You know, it was just like,
the things you can do when you're younger. Yeah.
oh god, yeah. Like I would literally be like dead for about a week if I tried anything in there like that now.
Yeah.
That's kind of how you have to do it. You know, like all
Yeah.
the young bands that I see about, they're doing it the same way.
Yeah. And Columbia, off the back of seeing your name around, did they see you at a show? Did they approach you, or did you kind of like shop demos and EPs out and then?
No, I think they came and saw us a couple of times, and they'd seen the EP1, and the main guy who's interested in us, a guy called Blair McDonald, he saw something in us that he was like, yeah, I can totally work with this. So yeah, he was just like, I really want you guys. Like, there's clearly a buzz going on about you guys. I really want to be involved. I think we could do good things together.
Off the back of that, you put out kind of EP 2 and 3 relatively quickly. I think EP 2, I think Remus would have been the first time that I heard you.
Yeah.
I think, again, probably a lot of people maybe outside of local area or who were particularly within the scene back then, especially maybe people of my sort of age, I guess that might have been the first kind of taste. I think whether that was like the first, I guess, bigger single or whatever, or the one that maybe got off the back of the Columbia deal, maybe spread out a little bit more. I know for sure I think I remember hearing it probably on something like Total Rock Radio or something like that, maybe.
We had that song in the bag before we'd signed the deal with Columbia. But that was the first time we'd ever got put into like a proper studio. And we were literally like, whoa. You know, just like, we'd done a few demos and stuff like, so the pre-100 Reasons band Floor, we'd done stuff before, but we'd always done it at this tiny little, you know, this little studio just outside South End.
Yeah.
With a wonderful man called John Hanna, who sadly died recently, like in the past couple of years, which is sad news. But we enjoyed using him so much that when we were given the money to actually go into a studio, we were like, well, you're coming to record us here. Not in your place. You're coming into London. We're going to record in this lovely studio. And I think he was just as sort of aghast about the whole thing as we were. And literally walking going, oh, there's so many flickery lights, and what's this and what's that? I have no idea what's going on here. So
just this rack full of gear and no one knowing what it does.
Yeah, like the live room's like bigger than my house.
So then off the back of the Columbia thing, obviously you brought out those EPs, you went on tour with like bands like Incubus, Muse, who obviously weren't quite the stadium band they are now at the time. You know, you were probably on a similar sort of footing at the time. I guess what they just released around that time, just released Showbiz, maybe probably just released.
Muse had just done the second record.
Origins of Symmetry.
That's it. That's the one.
Yeah. That's the kind of one that thrust them a bit, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was their Origin of Symmetry tour.
Nice.
They'd done it as well. They'd done the whole sort of, they'd worked their way up from like playing tiny little places, and we played some amazing big venues. And we were very, very blessed that the audience were very receptive to us when we were playing, you know. Like, I remember we were playing is Edinburgh, I think it was called, pretty sure it's the Corn Exchange in Edinburgh. It's quite a long, it's quite a thin but long, straight venue. Right. And I just remember we were playing. This is like, we had a support band, you know, we weren't even the headline band. So you could see almost like this sort of wave of people jumping up and down. So it looked like a sea wave.
You put out Ideas in 2002, Ideas Above Our Station.
Yep.
Obviously hugely successful. Just for people that aren't aware, it got to number 6 in the album charts. It went gold. Couple of top 40 singles off there. I think more than that, maybe 3 or 4 top 40 singles, was it?
Yeah, because EP3, which had I'll Find You in it, I think that actually hit 40.
Yeah.
And
nice.
we obviously, at the time, we were like, yeah, we're in the charts, because it played on, you know, they used to play the top. I don't even do that anymore.
On Radio 1, the chart.
Yeah, Radio 1 chart, top 40. We were like, they played I'll Find You. We were literally like in the van going, yeah.
Did you have any sort of inclination? Because obviously it's a weird one, like, as someone who's never wrote a, you know, I'm going to say kind of seminal record, you know, because it is a big record. It still means a lot to a lot of people. Do you have any sort of inclination when you're writing and recording a record like that? Like, I think we're onto something here. Like, obviously you knew you were on an upwards trajectory. You've been picked up by, you know, one of the biggest labels in the world. You were kind of had a bit of momentum. As you were writing that record, were you like, I think we've got something here that people are going to be really into, without sounding like cocky or, yeah, I'm not considering it's like, oh yeah, we were cocky. We knew it was mint. But like, is there a feeling when you're writing something like that? It's like, oh, hang on, this is something really good here.
It's hard to take consideration when you're in it. You know what I mean? Like, we were just really happy that we got to work with a producer that we wanted. we got to spend 5 weeks in New York,
Yeah.
which is awesome place, in an awesome studio, awesome people, and it was just a lovely experience. So, to be honest, I think if all of us, we did come away from that album going, yeah, this sounds great. This is like, we're really pleased at how well it's come out. Obviously, every band has to have self-belief in themselves.
Of course, yeah.
But you don't, you're not going to go, this is a hit record. This is going to blow everybody away. You just, you come away from it going, this is awesome. I love this record. Like, I hope everyone else likes it.
Yeah. And as a band, that's all you can do. Walk out knowing like, we've done the best we can do here. Because you do, you as a band, you write a record for yourselves first and foremost. Yes.
Oh, 100%.
You always have an eye in your head of like, oh, I wonder if people like this, especially if you have released stuff previously and people have liked it. In your head, you're a bit like, oh, well, they like that. And you maybe worry about stepping in a little different direction, but ultimately you're writing a record for yourself. And I think if you can come out of the studio thinking what we've put down there, like we absolutely love it and we wouldn't change a thing, you can't really do much more than that, can you?
I'm always a big believer that you should always write for yourself. I think when you try to write something to please other people or to basically try other things that are as unnatural as a band, that's when you tend to trip over yourself.
Yeah, and your heart's not in it as much either, is it?
No. Ideas was very much a combination of all of our influences and everything that we'd had leading up to that point.
Yeah.
Some songs we had to sort of work on, and then some songs literally we wrote like 2 days before we left for New York.
Yeah.
So I think when we did the anniversary shows in 2012 where we played the whole of the album from start to finish, it's like it's moments like that when you actually you can sit back and very much appreciate how good it is as an album from start to finish. It's not just front loaded with hits sort of thing.
No filler sort of thing. It's consistent all the way through for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm still utterly proud of it.
And obviously you touched on New York there and working with the producer you wanted to work with. And as someone who is very much into, not necessarily production myself, but keeping an eye on various producers and what they're doing, I did want to ask you a few questions on that. So ideas and also Shatterproof is Not a Challenge. Like you said, they were both recorded in New York with David Sardi, weren't they?
Yes.
So for anyone that's not aware, David's worked with everyone from Oasis to Marilyn Manson, System of a Down, Bush, I think Mel C even, of all the people. So like you were saying, that experience is recorded with an engineer like that in a place like New York. Like I say, it must have been insane.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. At the time, like one of the bands that we really liked was a band called Far.
Yep, Far, yeah. 100%.
And they released an album called Water and Solution. So we were like, oh yeah, that's the winner, basically. He recorded that. It was Dave Sardi. Well, that was our first introduction to Dave Sardi.
Yeah.
Obviously, Larry, like being into that sort of scene, he was like, well, if you like that, you're like Dave's actual band called Bark Market. And I'd kind of heard of them through late night television sort of like rock shows before, and interviews I'd seen, but you don't put two and two together and think, yeah, he's the guy for us. Until we all heard that record and went, yeah, that sounds mint, really like, it sounds really sort of just not overproduced. It sounds kind of what we want to sound like. Yeah. So our guys contacted his guys and then we made it happen. So yeah.
And in terms of working with kind of legendary producers, am I right in saying that, especially, on Ideas, was that engineered by Greg Fiddleman? Is that right?
Yes. Yeah.
And obviously, again, for those that don't know and maybe don't have an ear to it, Greg's basically gone on to be arguably one of the biggest producers in the world. So he's literally worked on the past kind of 3 or 4 Metallica records, Slayer, he did a few Slipknot albums, Sabbath. I think he even engineered and mixed 21 by Adele, which is probably one of the biggest selling records of the last kind of 10 years or whatever. So that's why I'm using kind of like the word legend there. So I guess at the time, obviously, was he just an engineer kind of in David's studio working under David, or?
Well, it wasn't David's studio. It was a place called The Magic Shop.
Right, okay.
It was in Manhattan. It was one of those classic, it's behind the door, and if you didn't know it was there, people walk past it every day not realizing there's a banging studio in there. So
yeah.
When the Foo Fighters did their album that basically where they went and recorded a song at different studios.
Oh, right. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. One of the songs was recorded in the Magic Shop.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So we did both albums pretty much mostly there. Sadly to hear, obviously, it did actually shut down which is a right bugger because
Oh, that's a shame.
yeah, well, the problem is a lot of Manhattan's kind of become gentrified, aka really expensive.
Yeah.
and the studio is like, was it 1 or 2 blocks just off the top of Broadway?
Right, okay. The success of Ideas, quite rightly, gave you the opportunity to do a lot of really cool things. I remember seeing you guys headline the second stage at Ozfest around that time at Donington. I think that was 2002. I was in that second stage, I think, pretty much all day. Like for me, who was, what was I at the time, 16, going on 17? I think that stage for me at that time was perfect. It was like you guys, it was like Il Nino, Kitty,
it was a great
Mushroom
lineup.
Head. It was just absolutely every, like one of my favorite bands who I still listen to a lot now that nobody gives any credit to, Pulse Ultra, like played that stage. I think they opened that up. Like
Cyclefly as well.
Cyclefly.
I've still got the poster for it. Like, so because we headlined the stage, the promoter for the festival, he gave us like framed copies of each of us got like a framed like poster. So that's one of the things I've got in my hallway, basically. So that's what I remember he's played. But I remember our third ever gig as playing as 100 Reasons was the Garage in London, supporting Kitty. And nice, it just come over, and like more like they were absolutely lovely bunch of lasses. Like all of them are just, and I'm really glad they're back actually because their new stuff's really cool. And
I'm glad they're still doing. I listened to it the other day. Yeah,
this is like when they first came out. You know, like people were first hearing of their first record had just come out and stuff like that, and they're all like crazy young. We played with them, and I remember Morgan. I think he said to Larry, "Oh man, you guys are so going to be like headlining over us soon." And he was just like, "Hey, don't be silly." Like, you know, like I thought she was just being nice and stuff like that. But it was a great gig. You know, you don't think too much of it. And then I remember at that festival, she came up to Larry because obviously we were headlining over, and she was like, "Told you." He was like, "Oh, yeah."
Yeah. You don't know next week's lottery numbers, do you?
Yeah.
As well as that, around that time, am I right in saying, I definitely remember seeing you once. You had a couple of appearances on Top of the Pops as well, didn't you, even? Like you were floating between Ozfest and Top of the Pops. You fell in that nice little kind of space in between.
Yeah. Well, we did it twice, and whether or not it was a sensible idea or not to, but we were like really sort of bullish and just went, "Oh, we're going to have to play live. You know, we have to play it all live because." Top of the Pops, most of the time you either play you have live vocals and backing track, or you just all backing track, like all just track. And we're like, well, no, we'll be fine. Not realizing the logistics of how to make it not sound shit. So didn't help that our sound guy, like, we're like, he's so funny. It was just like, where's your sound disc? I was seeing it was actually up in the rafters, like completely wrong direction. It was like, how can you even hear us, let alone mix us? So the fact that both times we did it didn't sound like a fucking train wreck is a complete I have no idea how it didn't sound terrible, but
I was going to say, I can't remember it being bad, but I did remember it being like, I was like, I'm pretty sure, I meant to check actually, because I'm sure it's probably on YouTube somewhere. I meant to check before I chatted to you, and I totally forgot in the end. But as I was putting through things to ask, I was like, I definitely remember them being on that. I'll have to remember. And in my head, I was like, I'm pretty sure they played live, because it's something I had to ask if, is that I remember it as being in that, and was that the case? Because, you say, there was this huge thing at the time about, you can have to, I remember there was a huge thing with Slipknot where they told them they had to only do live vocals, and I know famously, bands like Nirvana and stuff just pissed around. Iron Maiden did that thing where they ran around, swapped instruments. Like, there's a lot of famous Top of the Pops incidents with rock bands that have been told they can't play, isn't there? So it's cool that they give it the opportunity to do it.
Well, we obviously had we're obviously ballsy enough to just say we're doing it or we're not doing it or something along those lines. So they said, "Oh, I go on." And thankfully we practiced a lot because we were played really well. But I'm watching back in the videos, the YouTube and stuff like that, it doesn't sound like a complete train wreck, so I call that a win.
Oh yeah, 100%.
But it was the weirdest thing. It's like when you watch Top of the Pops, it's like the studio is absolutely rammed, but it's not. It's kind of really weird. It was like, so dotted around, it's in the same studio. It was in the same studio room that they did like later with Jules Holland.
Right, okay.
And I've always wanted to do that with Jules Holland, but sadly that never happened. But
yet.
And the way that he has bands all set up around like the middle, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, the camera just pans to them sort of thing.
Yeah, so it's the same, but like it's like they're on stages, and what they do is it's not like on the TV where it's like, oh, the next band, the next band, the next band. It was like they had like about 500 people, and they were like after every song's finished, they were like, right, and cut, and everybody move over to this stage over here, and we'll film that.
Yeah.
And now everybody move over to this stage.
So following on from ideas, obviously you brought out Shatterproof's Not a Challenge a couple of years later. Again, also a success, kind of charted top 20. I think that went silver, am I right in saying?
I don't really know. I think we did pretty well considering that the whole label thing went a bit south.
Obviously, Shatterproof followed on sound-wise in a pretty similar vein to Ideas. It was kind of like a continuation as you kind of expected to go. Personally, I would say anyway. But then you obviously got to Kill Your Own in 2007. And there was a couple of more kind of abrasive tracks on there, I would say. So tracks like Live Fast, Die Ugly, Better Way, and maybe I guess you class maybe more as heavier tracks, the more like harsher vocals, I suppose, a bit faster, maybe a bit rawer. Was it fun to kind of throw in a few tracks like that to mix it up a little bit?
Well, I always thought of as Shatterproof as like our sort of heavier album, a bit rawer.
Yeah.
And that was kind of intentional to be a little bit less pop punky, because Ideas was never like pop punky,
no.
But a little bit more. It was like a response to the poppier side of this, like, and it wasn't like we're aiming to do, as we said before, it's not like you're aiming to do something. You just try to write stuff, and whatever happens at the time is what comes out.
Yeah.
And I always imagined the reason why up until a few years ago, like my favorite record we ever did was Kill Your Own, because it just felt like a combination of the first two records stylistic wise.
Yeah, I get that.
So you kind of had the harder, faster tracks, which are basically like the faster tracks and Ideas, but more in a Shatterproofy, darker vein. We got Larry to record because he was making a real go of it as a producer and, doing a great job. And that's what he does to this day. He's actually a producer. So I think there was just a really good vibe with that record. Up until the latest record, basically, that was kind of my favorite for a long time.
So 2007, you kind of put out your last record before the kind of period of inactivity. So quick word shot the action. So that came out in 2007. You kind of toured for a couple of years, and then was it around 2008, 2009 you kind of went on a bit of hiatus, went on a bit of a rest for a few years?
Yeah, it was about 2009 when we were literally like, there was no big falling out. There was nothing like this. There was no like, oh, screw you, like, I'll see you later. Something.
Yeah.
It was more like, well, we're not on a label anymore. Like Larry really wanted to sort of properly get his head down with the production thing, and other people wanted to do other stuff. So it's just a case of like, well, we'll just all go off and do our own things for a bit. There was no like big fallout or anything like that. It was actually like we felt like it was time to put a pause on the whole thing.
Yeah, and that's always good. And like you say, if you feel like you've lost a bit of momentum, and like you say, by that point, you've been going for 10 odd years, being in a band for that long, it's tiring. Sometimes you just need that rest. And like you say, it doesn't always have to be. People always assume when a band breaks up, it's because something may just happen, but it can just be like, look, we've been doing this for 10 years now. Let's just step away for a little bit and take stock. And then obviously, you kind of came back after that little break, like you say, you had that great run of 10th anniversary shows. Because obviously I remember seeing you guys on that tour. I remember you being on Real. So it was you and obviously Hell is for Heroes doing Neon Handshake as well.
Mm-hmm.
Two great bands playing two great albums that I still...
Three great bands.
Three great bands. Oh, who was the other one? Sorry.
Yeah, so the first time we managed to drag Cable out of
retirement.
Course.
I totally forgot about that. Yeah, it was Cable, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, love those guys.
Yeah, I totally forgot about that. Yeah, thanks for correcting me.
I don't know how we managed to convince them to come out of retirement, but we did. So.
Yeah. But I remember playing that. I remember seeing that at the Academy in Manchester. I remember that being great. And then, again, you kind of dipped away a bit and you played, I think you did Sonosphere you did in 2014.
Yeah, so we were supposed to do Sonosphere 2 2012, but I think that year it got cancelled because there's some reason, or they took a year off or something like that. And then the opportunity came up for us to play it, and it was great. It was a wicked day out. We had a great time. The audience was ace, and it was a good festival, lovely setting. Didn't rain when we were playing, so I call that a win.
after a bit of a period of inactivity, popped up again and put out last year your latest album. So come back, first music in, 15 years, Glorious Sunset.
Yes.
What kind of drove that decision to finally not just get together to play maybe some shows, but to actually, get together, write some music again? What made you think, I think this is the time?
I think we just thought, maybe now's the time where, let's get in a studio. Larry had his little studio in Brixton. Obviously, Andy's been a big shot stage manager, for loads of big bands and running around, basically. So he tried to chip in his best as much as he could, basically. But obviously, he was off gallivanting around the world. Me, Colin, and Larry got in a room and just tried to see, let's try and work on something. And, if nothing comes of it, then, no one's the wiser. No one needs to know. Do you know what I mean?
No.
And the first song, the first day, the first time we got together, we literally came up with an ace song, and funny enough, that actually ended up on the record. So it was one of those sort of spurred you on to go, well, yeah, that sounded ace. Maybe we should just keep going and see what happens. And
yeah, for sure.
It just all sort of steamrolled from there. And everyone was obviously busy doing their own things, but everyone just seemed like the right time to do something. The one thing that kind of spurred me on was Colin still at it. His voice was still there totally. There's so many bands you hear and the vocalist gets to a certain age and it's it can just go downhill and they just haven't got it anymore. Do you know what I mean? But Colin's just smashing it out of the park. It's just kind of plants that seed in your head going, well, maybe we should do something else. And certain things came together. It was just a few different combination of things that kind of sort of came together. And the next thing we know, we're I guess we are working on an actual album. So
yeah, once you've got to that point, yeah, it's we're all in now.
Well, yeah, and the fact is because no one knew about it apart from super close friends, there was no expectation, there was no pressure on us. If we started on it, it started going really shit, then we'd be no, we're just going to leave it.
Yeah. And
no one would be the wiser. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah, it's I say, it's nice to work under that sort of freedom, isn't it?
Yeah, it's almost like doing your first album again. It's you've got all the time in the world to write your first record sort of thing.
Yeah, that's the famous thing, isn't it? Yeah.
when we finished it and stuff like that, and it all been mixed and mastered, and still no one had heard about this thing yet. We had originally announced to do the tour that we ended up doing, but it was 2022. But then that kind of got postponed because a lot of venues were still struggling, and so close after to the whole COVID lockdown sort of thing, it was it was still a bit sort of sketchy on certain parts and what you had to do, what you didn't do. And
yeah. So
in a way, we saw it as an opportunity, because originally it was going to be do the tour and then bring the album out and go, some of this, do you know what I mean? Afterwards. But in the end, it kind of, I think, worked out for the better because it was here's the new album. This is why we're doing the tour. So it became more of a thing.
Yeah, having a reason to something to tour, something to kind of
exactly. I think for me, I was way happier about that because we'd done the anniversary tour.
Yeah,
didn't want to do another just a nostalgia show sort of thing. It was actually if we're going to do this, I want to have a reason to do it.
Yeah, and you get that excitement as someone playing in a band myself, when you've written a new song and you get to play it live for the first time, especially if you've been playing it could be a couple of years even, maybe if you've been on a touring cycle of playing either the same set or a very similar set, to have something new to be able to put in and play, you do get that excitement.
Yeah.
Probably put a bit more across out to the crowd because you've got a bit more maybe energy because you're revitalized by playing something new and it's something different and exciting.
Yeah, and when we did the tour, new songs just seemed to sit perfectly with the old songs.
Yeah. So a few years back, you joined another legendary UK band in Raging Speedhorn.
Yeah.
So how's that kind of been over the past, probably,
5 years now? Yeah. Of February 2019, I think I joined. I was officially a member.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because I had known the guys since 2000-ish or 2001 sort of thing, because we'd kind of sort of crossed paths on tours. They'd released their album in 98. I think it's 99. Well, either way, they had their first album out and they were slogging it like everybody else was. Do you know what I mean? We crossed paths and we'd always just hit it off, and they were just, we always just got on really, really well with them and stuff like that. And then next thing I know, like they'd like lost a guitar player. Me and the Gordon, the drummer, basically been close for many years. I remember when they just lost, I think it was like both their guitarists at the time. Obviously, Jim had come back, but at the time they both their guitar players. And so I was like, I'd just been doing another band called Freezy Atlantic for 10 years, and that had just ended. Put a message to Gordon. I was just like, well, I'd be an idiot if I didn't, like, just to help, even if it's just to help you guys out, because I love you guys, basically throw my keys in the bowl to help you guys out for guitar if you need it. And he was just like, oh my God, that'd be amazing, blah, blah, blah. And then that was fine. Never really heard anything about it after that. And then about a month later or something like that, well, actually before then, like, they'd done a post. They got Jim back in the band, and they got a guy called Dave playing guitar. And my first thought was like, it was not like, oh, it was more like, oh, brilliant. They managed to sort something out. They, they're all good to go, like, I was just genuinely happy for them. And then about a week later, I get a text message from Gordon. He's just like, Andy, have you still got all your bass stuff? I was like, why? And he's just messaging it all, just steamrolled from that. And at the time, I was like, I'm going to come in because I love you guys and I just want to help you guys out, until you find someone proper. And first skiing I did with them was Crawford Arms in Milton Keynes. That was a great laugh. And then
it's a great venue.
Yeah, and it was a warm up for like this festival at Birmingham Academy. I was playing on stage, and it was just like nice to play some heavy music, and I was having a great time. So I was like, sod this. So basically, I walked over to Frank and went, you know what, I'm in. And it's quite funny. There's actually YouTube video footage, and like Frank's going, he's in. He says he's in. It's like, because I was like, I'm having too much fun with this. It's like, well, I might as well. Like, why not? So we'll see where it goes. So yeah.
Like I say, it's a nice juxtaposition from the 100 Reasons stuff as well, isn't it? Like,
it's
the two different sides of things.
Oh, absolutely. Like, but it's two sides of the rock and roll coin, sort of thing.
Yeah, for sure. And you've played like Bloodstock with them since and things. Obviously, you put out a record, right? Were you involved in the record?
Yeah, put out, I think it was like 2020.
Yeah.
We've got a new record ready to go.
Nice.
That's coming out at some point later this year. So we're really, really stoked with that. Looking forward to seeing where that takes us. Do you know what I mean? So try to keep myself busy.
Yeah, why not? So it's been great talking about music and everything, but what the people really want to know, Andy, is your chippy order. So let's get down to some chippy chat.
Go on then.
So first question we always say, what local chippy is it that you're taking me to?
So there's a place really near to me. It's called Top of the Hill, is the place where I tend to go.
Top of the Hill, and whereabouts is that?
In a place called Sandbach.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm originally from really close to Sandbach.
Oh, right, oh, nice, yeah, nice.
Yeah, so in fact, I've got a feeling now you've mentioned it that I've been to that chippy before, yeah.
Yeah, it's, I think the road's called The Hill.
Oh, maybe it makes sense, yeah.
Yeah, it's because the local places around me there. Sometimes, when you get fish and chips and the batter and all that, it just makes you go, you just a bit sort of, but they do like the best batter sort of you can down south. My whole family's from Scotland, so I'm kind of spoiled because a fish supper is basically better than anything you get down here.
Yeah.
So
the more northern you go, the better the chippies get, I think. As a rule of thumb. So what size portion chips do we get?
I tend to just get a large that I then share with me and my wife.
Okay.
I don't really go massive portions, at least not anymore anyway. We just don't do big portions of stuff.
No. Are they quite hefty portions though? Like, are they like more than enough to share between two?
When I moved up north and down south, like the first chippy we went into, and there's the guy, we'll have a large chips, because at the time all the other places down south for like a large chips was like a decent amount. And he just got out and he was just shoveling more and more and more. And it was like actual pile of chips, like an actual sort of massive pile of chips. They were literally like, this could feed like a family of 10, just the chips. We're like, oh, right. So we definitely throw most of them away. And then we had a good go at it. It was just unnecessary amount of chips. And now I'm a bit more cautious about what size I go for.
You've learned your lesson.
Oh, 100%.
What's your kind of main accompaniment to your chips then? What's your main event?
I like to go to Scotland every year for for the family. Just we tried to get a chippy tea at least one night.
Yeah.
I quite like to get almost like they call it coujons or whatever, but it's like a mini battered fish.
Like fish strips, or
Yeah, fish strips sort of thing.
Yeah.
Because I haven't had enough fish, so it's just add some more basically, which is a really nice little accompaniment. I don't really do any of that battered sausage or anything like that. I'm just all about a nice bit of fish and some chips.
Yeah, perfect. Any preference on the fish? Cod, haddock? You got place?
I love a bit of haddock really at the moment.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, I think I find cod a little bit stodgy sometimes, so I'm more of a haddock person. With him.
Yeah, nice kind of flaky, meaty sort of fish.
It's just not as heavy, which is quite nice.
You get plenty of salt and vinegar?
So I get salt and vinegar on my chips, but not on my fish.
Okay, yep, that's fair enough.
Because otherwise, a lot of the time you get home from the shop and it's like melting, or whether the batter's kind of melting away.
Yeah, and it sticks to the paper, and then you fold it off and it pulls it all off.
Exactly. So
yeah, devastating, just exposing the inside.
I'd rather if I need to add more salt and vinegar myself to the fish. I just prefer just have it on the chips and then keep it separate.
Yeah, there's something nice, like having the chips soaked in it when you get back is a good thing, but not the fish. It's weird, isn't it?
Exactly.
I think by doing that, you kind of you're getting the best of both worlds, really.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Do you get any kind of moisture on the side? Any curry?
Oh
gravy,
yeah, chips up curry sauce is a wonderful thing. Yeah, I love that. I don't know what they made. It's just stuff out of a packet, obviously, but it's just good stuff.
Most Chinese supermarkets, if you've got like a kind of Chinese supermarket or wholesaler near you, sell it. You literally get it in a tub. It looks almost like a paste, like katsu or something like that. And you just mix it you literally just mix it with a bit of boiling water. Like we always have some in the cupboard, as you can tell.
Yeah. Well, it's either that or if I get home, it's the good old reliable HP.
Oh, right, okay. So you like kind of brown sauce on the chips, yeah.
Yeah.
Would you have that on your fish?
No. It's fish.
No, I was going to say,
just fish as is.
Yeah.
And chips. It's all about the chip.
Do you pour it all over your chips, the curry sauce, or do you dip to avoid kind of cross-contamination with the fish?
No, I'm a dipper.
Yeah, I'm the same.
I find that when people just pour lots of sauce and stuff over everything, it's the same as when you get like a takeaway after a night on the Raz. It's just like where they just pour it all over everything, and the problem is it just becomes like a big mulch of nonsense.
No matter how much you say to them, just a little bit of sauce, mate. It's always like, just a little bit, okay. Just
a
all
bit
over
of sauce.
the place.
It's like 3/4 of the bottle later, and you're like, come on, man. Can't even see the chips anymore.
Yeah, can I have some chips with my sauce, please? Yeah,
exactly, yeah.
So I think I'll know the answer to this because obviously you've already mentioned that you're not really that much of a big eater. I assume you don't order anything while you're waiting for your fish to be cooked?
No, not really.
No.
I'd rather basically it's to look forward to the anticipation of eating your fish and chips, basically.
Yeah, we've had a few people say that. Like they see it's a bit of an event and it's nice to kind of like keep it as such.
Yeah, basically.
A can of pop. Did you get a can of pop when you go to the chippy?
Yeah, Dr. Pepper.
Dr. Pepper, that's what you go to, is it?
Either Dr. Pepper or an Iron Brew.
Okay, oh yeah, nice, yeah. Both good choices. Iron Brew is great with a chip. I mean, it's great at any time. It's great on a hangover. It's great with a chippy.
As I said, being Scottish heritage, basically, Iron Brew all the way, frankly. So,
were you as outraged when they changed the recipe as a lot of other people were recently?
I don't think I noticed a crazy amount of difference.
It was mainly just a lot less sugar, I think, was the
thing, wasn't it? Yeah. Like a lot of the best stuff that you get to eat and drink and stuff like that up in Scotland, you don't do it for the health benefits. You do it because it tastes space.
Yeah. I love going up there, man. I mean, more for anything, like, I love Lorne sausage.
Oh.
I love a proper, and I'm really lucky. So I'm in Bristol, and just around the corner from me in South Bristol, there's a cafe, give them a shout out now, called Lucky Strike.
Nice.
You can get a proper, Lorne sausage and tatty kind of scone kind of breakfast sandwich with black pudding as well. And it's so, so good.
Scottish morning rolls are generally one of the greatest things ever. And you forget how good they are until you go back to Scotland and have one. You have a Lorne sausage in a Scottish morning roll bap.
Yeah.
And you're literally just get depressed because it's they haven't got these down south. Damn it.
Yeah.
There's another one that, so my whole family from Paisley, which is just on the outskirts of Glasgow. They do another thing around there. And I didn't realize up until a few years later, how localized this is, but they do a thing called called beef ham.
Right, okay.
which is kind of like, it's like I guess it's kind of like a minute steak style thing. It's like really thin cuts of beef.
Right.
And then what they do is then you got this sort of all spicy type stuff that you basically coat it in, and then you fry it, like quickly fry it, stuff like that. That in a Scotch morning bath is literally a taste sensation.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. I always like hearing about localized stuff.
It's just weird because it's like you go to Edinburgh and you say beef ham, I haven't got absolutely no clue what you're on about. It's like, really? Oh, okay. So just a Glasgow thing then.
I love hearing about stuff like that. Like, it's always good because, like you say, when you go there, then you're like, oh, I know I'm not going to be able to try this anywhere else. So I need to kind of, like, when I was up in Edinburgh the other year, me and my wife went up for the weekend or whatever, and I was like, if I leave this city without having a Lord sausage, tatty scone, and kind of morning roll or something in a cafe, I won't be very happy. Like, that's all I wanted from the weekend. All the things that you can do and see up there, that's the only thing I wanted to kind of like make sure I ticked off.
Oh, as I said, well, I tried to go up Scotland with the family once a year.
Yeah.
If I don't have a fish supper at least one night when we're up there, then I'm doing something wrong.
Yeah.
So we tend to go like sometimes twice in 1 week.
Oh, there's no shame in that.
It's just too good.
What are your thoughts on things like pizza crunches and stuff like that? Have you ever tried one of those?
I tried a batter Mars bar once, and that was an experience.
Yeah. I have tried one. I don't really think it adds anything. It's just like, oh, I've just kind of got like a melty Mars bar. Like, the batter doesn't add any additional sort of flavour apart from a bit of...
The batter sort of replaces the outer shell of chocolate. It's really weird.
Yeah.
So it's basically batter and the internal of a Mars bar. And then you're literally eating it. It's like you get about halfway through and you're already like regretting your decision.
I've never tried a pizza crunch. I'm really intrigued by that.
I'm always up for trying stuff, but like I just look at that and go, what? Why? What? I know because you can, but I've never been. Yeah, I just don't get it. I find it amusing. Basically, I can understand why people want to try it, but
I mean, I love pizza and I love chippies. They're like my two favourite things. So it'd be definitely me not to try it next time I get up there, really. So our last section gives you the chance to tell us kind of what you've got coming up in the future. So we call this section... Obviously, you've got one particularly very exciting thing coming up. So let's talk about that first, which is obviously the Albert Hall show.
Royal Albert Hall. The genesis of the conversation started not long after we'd done the tour. For me, it was like we'd headlined Hammersmith Apollo to the biggest crowd we'd ever played to. And it was like proper sort of life tick. You know, Tick done that. Like,
yeah, that classic venue.
You know, like still blows me away, basically. I was like, that's amazing. And this whole thing came up and our manager, who was just love him to bits, basically, just was like, yep, right, so we're going to get you in, we'll get you in Royal Albert Hall. We're like, yeah, right, okay. Sadly, I've never even been to the Royal Albert Hall, let alone played it. But I know so many people who've worked it or played it or done stuff like that, and it looks incredible. And
yeah, as a setting, it looks amazing. I really wanted to go to that Meshuggah show there. Was it like a couple of years back they played? I was like, just to see a band like that in there would have been insane. But yeah, unfortunately, I didn't have the chance to go. But...
yeah, I bet that was mental. But when is a Meshuggah show not completely mental? So
exactly, yeah.
Really, really stoked to have rival schools coming to do it with us as well. Like, you know, we'd known Walter and the guys. We'd done a little Euro tour with rival schools when their album came out, the first album came out. We was talk about who could we get to do it with us, and obviously their name popped up, and you know, we just asked them, do you want to do this? And they were like, yeah, absolutely. So
of course we do, yeah. So for anyone that's not seen it, do you want to remind us what the date of the show is?
It is the 7th of May, 2025.
7th of May, 2025. So there you go. Anyone that hasn't got a ticket for that yet.
I can apologise that it's on a Wednesday for some reason, but...
You're not going to turn the chance down, are you?
Well, no, it's just that and the fact that they're just so booked up. That's the earliest we could get, really. So we're doing that. That's amazing. It's not just going to be a 100 Reasons show. We want to make it sort of special. So we're going to...
yeah, we're fitting for the occasion.
Yeah, we're working on like coming up with plenty of ideas to do something a bit different, a bit more special in such a wonderful setting, you know.
Yeah.
And I can't wait. Obviously, on the Speedhorn front, yes, we've got a new album that's we're super excited to get. It's going to be out later on this year. So expect loads of shows for that.
Yeah, you've got a couple coming up. I had a look on your Instagram before. So you've got Deprivation Fest.
Yeah,
in
we've got a
Swindon.
couple of shows doing this. I think a lion's share of more shows are probably more likely in the next year, basically. So next year's going to be a busy one for me, I'm expecting. So, and on another front, because I'm annoying enough bands, basically, like I've also got another band called Hectares.
Okay.
Liv, who used to sing in Freeze Atlantic with me, basically, me and him started a new band, and we're just about to release a second EP, and I'm really, really pleased with that. You know, I must admit, like, I'm really like pleased and feel quite blessed that I feel like I'm hitting a stride with working on music. Like a lot of the stuff I'm working on now and coming up with now is definitely, you feel like it's, I know people go, this is the best stuff I've ever written. It's like,
yeah,
but I feel like I'm you know, when you fully hitting the strides with stuff, and this new Speedhorn album is just, you know, it's great, really, really good.
Amazing. Andy, I think we've covered everything we normally cover on an episode.
Cool.
Thanks so much for giving up your time to chat to me. I really appreciate it.
Not a problem.
Good luck with everything that's coming up on all the band fronts, especially with that huge Albert Hall show next year.
Oh, absolutely.
Take care of yourself. It was really nice to meet you. Hope you'll chat again soon.
No problem.
Cheers, mate. That was Andy from 100 Reasons and Raging Speedhorn. He took us to Top of the Hill Chippy in Sandbach and ordered a large chips to share with his wife and some haddock fish strips. He'll have salt and vinegar on the chips, but not the fish, and he'll also have some curry sauce for dipping. He'll wash it all down with either a Dr. Pepper or an Iron Brew. As always, I want to see your chippy teas too, so don't forget to tag us in any pics or let us know your favourite local chippy on socials using @RiffNChips. Thanks to Rob Collier for providing the dive bomb, Edgar Gibbs for the screams, and Ryan Westwood for the artwork. See you in a week's time for our next episode.